I never imagined my life would change like this. When I held that baby against my chest, standing there in the darkness, I knew one thing for certain. If he caught me, everything would be over. But I couldn't stop myself. The omega instinct inside me responded to that child's soul, to his desperate need, and I was just a maid whose own son had died 3 weeks ago. This afternoon, when I accepted this job at Mr. Cade Ashford's mansion, I thought maybe work would help me forget. He was an alpha, powerful, distant, always unreachable. His son Orville was only 4 months old, and his mother, she was gone too, died during childbirth. So this house contained only 2 souls, a broken alpha who never held his own child, and a tiny boy who cried through every night. I understood my responsibilities were cleaning, laundry, and managing the kitchen. But when I first heard Orville crying, my heart, it shattered. That sound was exactly like my Juan's voice. My baby. My everything. Who was gone forever. Tonight Orville was crying again. I sat on the garden terrace upstairs, trying silently to compose myself, when suddenly that sound came, the baby's wet, painful sobbing. The nurse had fallen asleep. Mr. Ashford was locked in his office. And I walked into that room. I lifted Orville from his crib. His small face was red, soaked with tears. Shh, shh, baby, I whispered, trying to inject that warmth into my voice that now existed only in memories. But he wouldn't stop. He was hungry. And then, I did what I'd been trying not to do. I removed my shirt. My body was still producing milk. The doctors said it would stop, but it hadn't. Probably because my omega nature refused to accept that Juan was really gone. Orville latched on. Instantly. Like he knew. Like he needed exactly that. I held him close in my arms. The dark room was illuminated only by moonlight. Tears streamed down my cheeks, but I remained silent. Completely silent. Then the door opened. What the hell are you doing? My heart stopped beating. I raised my head slowly. Cade Ashford stood in the doorway, his eyes wide, his face displaying both shock and anger. His tall frame filled the entire doorway, his alpha scent, cedar wood and smoke, flooding the room instantly. I didn't move Orville away from my chest. I couldn't move at all. I'm sorry, I managed to say, my voice trembling violently. He was crying. You're breastfeeding my son. This wasn't a statement. This was an accusation. I closed my eyes tightly. I lost my baby 3 weeks ago. My body, I couldn't explain myself properly. How could I? This entire situation was so twisted, so inappropriate. Cade stepped forward. Slowly. His jaw was clenched tight, but he wasn't yelling. He was just staring at me, like he was attempting to understand something incomprehensible. Get out, he said. Soft, cold, final. I placed Orville back in his crib, pulled on my shirt, and left the room without another word. But when I stepped into the corridor, my hands were shaking and my heart was pounding so hard I thought perhaps this was the end. My job. This house where I'd come to hide my pain. Everything. I went to my small room and shut the door, sitting on the bed with my head in my hands. Had I done something wrong? Yes. But in that moment, Orville's cries reminded me so much of Juan that I lost all control. I didn't sleep all night. I just waited for morning when Cade would summon me and tell me to leave. Maybe he'd make this a police matter. Maybe he'd think I was some kind of pervert. But what happened in the morning was something I never expected. The morning alarm hadn't even sounded when I woke up. Sleep never came the entire night. I pulled out my small bag and started folding my clothes, thinking perhaps I should just leave on my own without saying anything. At least I'd preserve some dignity that way. But when I came downstairs to the dining area just to get some water, Cade was sitting right there at the table, wearing a suit, coffee cup in hand, completely calm, as if last night had never happened. Sit, he said without looking at me. I remained standing. Mr. Ashford, I understand that. I said, sit, Remy. This time he looked at me. His gray-blue eyes were so intense that I held my breath. I slowly lowered myself into a chair, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. He placed his coffee cup on the table and looked directly into my eyes. There was no expression on his face, but his alpha presence was so strong that the room felt smaller. You lost a child, he said. A statement, not a question. I nodded. Words wouldn't come. How old was he? 4 months, I whispered. Same age as Orville. Cade leaned back in his chair. He observed me for several seconds in silence, as if scanning my soul, my past, my intentions. Orville's been rejecting formula since his mother died, he said, a subtle pain threading through his voice. He screams for hours. He barely eats anything. The doctors say he's underweight. I've hired 5 nurses in 3 months. None of them could calm him down properly. I stayed quiet. Hearing all this hurt my heart, but I didn't understand why he was telling me these things. Was this some kind of taunt? Some justification for why he was firing me? But last night, Cade continued, leaning forward slightly, I watched you for 10 minutes before I said anything. Orville didn't cry. He didn't fight. He latched properly, like he recognized you, like his body knew exactly what it needed. My breath caught in my throat. So he'd been watching that long? And then he still scolded me? I'm not firing you, Remy, Cade said. I blinked in confusion. What? I'm offering you a different position. A better one. Sir, I don't understand. Be Orville's wet nurse, he said. Directly. No hesitation. No shame. Live here full-time in the guest room near his nursery. Feed him when he needs it. Care for him. I'll pay you 10 times what you're currently earning, plus full medical benefits and housing. My mind went blank. This wasn't a normal job offer. This was some kind of contract that society would never accept. You want me to nurse your son? I asked, making sure I'd heard correctly. Yes. Exclusively. But Mr. Ashford, you're already producing milk, Cade said, his tone flat but factual. Your body is physically ready for this. And my son desperately needs it. This isn't charity, Remy. This is necessity. This is survival. His survival. I gripped my hands tighter in my lap. People will talk. Your family, your staff, society. This isn't normal. A male Omega nursing someone else's child. They'll think. I don't care what people think, he interrupted. Do you? That question silenced me completely. Did I care? My one? He was gone. But my body was still ready for him. Still producing as if he might come back. And Orville, he was alone too. Motherless. Hungry. Crying through the nights just like my son used to. I lowered my head. I need time to think about this. You have until tonight, Cade said, standing up and adjusting his jacket. Give me your decision by 8 p.m. Yes or no. If it's no, I'll give you 1 month's salary as severance and a good reference letter. If it's yes, he paused, his eyes on me. Then you belong to this house. To my son, completely. No half measures. He left the dining room, abandoning me alone with my thoughts. I spent the entire day thinking, while working in the kitchen, while folding laundry. When I heard Orville crying from upstairs, my heart ached. But I didn't go up. The nurse was handling him. When evening came and the sun began to set, I knew what my decision was. I went to Katie's study. He was working on his laptop. Yes, I said. He looked up at me. I'll do it, I continued, my voice clear. I'll be Orville's wet nurse. I'll take care of him. Cade nodded. No smile, no relief. Just acceptance. Good. Move your things to the guest room tonight. You start tomorrow morning. And just like that, my life changed again. The first week felt mechanical. Routine-based. Clinical. Almost. Cade gave me the guest room next to Orville's nursery. Small but comfortable, with an attached bathroom. I lived there setting alarms every 3 hours. Feeding Orville 4 to 5 times daily depending on his needs. Nurses still came for daily cleaning and monitoring, but feeding was exclusively my responsibility. Everything was documented, timings, duration, Orville's weight gain, everything. Cade had insisted on maintaining a proper medical log, as if this were some clinical trial. But every time Orville latched onto my chest, I remembered Juan, his soft breathing, his tiny fingers that would grip my hand. That feeling when he'd fall asleep satisfied in my arms. Orville was exactly the same. Same sounds, same warmth, same need. This was both my healing and my torture. Cade was rarely home during that first week. He'd leave early for his office or business meetings, returning late at night, sometimes at 10, sometimes after midnight. Whenever he came home, he'd go straight to his study or the terrace. He never came to see Orville. Never. I observed him carefully. The way he'd pass by the nursery door without looking inside. The way he'd quicken his pace when he heard Orville's sounds. He was running from his own son. By the end of the second week, I decided to say something. One night while I was putting Orville back in his crib after feeding, Kate entered, properly for the first time. He stood by the door, hands in his pockets, looking ready to flee at any moment. "Is he asleep?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I replied softly, adjusting Orville's blanket. "He ate well today, gaining weight properly now." Cade nodded but didn't come closer. He just stood there watching his son from a distance like he was some museum piece. "Look but don't touch." I straightened up and turned toward him. "Why don't you hold him sometime?" Cade's jaw tightened. "That's not your concern. He's your son," I said, frustration creeping into my voice. "He needs more than just food and clean diapers. And you're his nurse?" Cade interrupted, his alpha voice taking on a stricter edge. "Stay in your lane, Remy. Do your job. That's what you're paid for." He turned to leave. "Is that what this is?" I asked, and he stopped. "Just a job? Just a transaction? Because it doesn't feel like that when I'm holding him, when I'm feeding him, Don't," Cade warned without turning around. "Don't make this more than it is." "Then what is it?" I demanded. "Because right now it feels like you hired me to do the parenting you're too afraid to do yourself." Katie slowly turned around. His eyes held something dark. Pain maybe. Or anger. I couldn't tell. "You don't know anything about me," he said, each word deliberate. "Then tell me," I challenged. "Tell me why you can't even look at your own son properly." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then Cade looked away toward the door, as if deciding whether to answer or not. "She died because of him," he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. "My wife, Elena. She bled out during delivery. Postpartum hemorrhage. The doctors said it was a rare complication. 1 in thousands. But it happened. And his voice cracked. "I watched her die while my son was being cleaned in the next room. I heard his first cry while I was holding her hand and watching the light leave her eyes. My heart sank. Suddenly everything made sense. The distance, the coldness, the avoidance. So when I see him," Cade continued, still not looking at me, "I see her, dying, screaming, bleeding. And I know it's not his fault. Logically, I know that. But emotionally," he finally turned to me, "I just can't." I walked toward him, slowly, carefully. "Orville didn't kill her," I said softly. "Life did. Fate did. Bad luck did. But that baby in there?" I gestured toward the crib. "He's innocent. And he didn't ask to be born into this grief. He needs you, Cade. Not just your money or your house. He needs his father." Tears formed in Cade's eyes but he didn't let them fall. "I don't know how to be his father," he confessed. "Then learn," I said. "The same way I'm learning how to be something to him too." Cade gripped my wrist. Gently. His touch was warm despite everything. "You speak like you understand loss," he said. "I do," I whispered. "I lost Juan, and every day I wake up feeling like half of me is missing. But taking care of Orville, it doesn't replace Juan. Nothing can. But it gives me a reason to keep going. Maybe he can do the same for you." We stood there together, silent, connected by shared grief and a tiny sleeping baby nearby. "Don't make me feel things, Remy," Cade said, his voice rough. "That's dangerous territory." I didn't pull my hand away from his grip. "Maybe dangerous is exactly what you need." Something shifted between us that night. Subtle, invisible, but real. And I knew from that moment forward, things would never be the same as before. The following 2 weeks brought changes in Katie's behavior. Slow but noticeable. He stayed home more often, arriving for dinner, taking fewer calls on weekends. And most importantly, he started watching Orville, at first only from doorways, from hallways. When I'd feed Orville or give him baths, I could see Cade in my peripheral vision standing there observing but still afraid to touch. Then one day he came closer. I was doing tummy time with Orville on the nursery floor mat. Orville was trying to lift his head, making cute little sounds. I was encouraging him when Cade entered. "Can I join?" he asked hesitantly. I looked up surprised. "Of course." Cade sat down on the floor, somewhat awkwardly. He didn't know what to do. I picked up a soft toy and placed it in front of Orville. "Just talk to him," I suggested. "Babies respond to voices." Cade cleared his throat. "Hey, Orville, His voice was stiff, uncomfortable. You're getting bigger. Orville turned his head toward Katie's voice. Then, he smiled. A proper baby smile. Kate's breath hitched. I could see it in his eyes. Wonder, pain, love, fear, all mixed together. He recognizes you, I said softly. He knows you're his father. Cade slowly extended his hand and touched Orville's tiny hand. Orville gripped his finger, and Cade broke. Not dramatically. Not with sobs. But tears silently rolled down his cheeks. I'm sorry, he told Orville, his voice broken. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I blamed you. I'm sorry. I placed my hand on Cade's shoulder. In support. In understanding. From that day forward, Cade began to change. He'd visit Orville in the mornings before leaving for work. He'd read bedtime stories, even though Orville didn't understand them. He'd spend more time on weekends, and I watched them both. Father and son. Healing. Bonding. But alongside that, I started feeling something else. Something I didn't want. I began thinking about Cade more often. The way he now looked at Orville. The way his alpha scent made me want to breathe deeply whenever he entered a room. The way he'd sometimes catch me looking at him when he thought I wasn't paying attention. This was wrong. I was his employee. This was supposed to be a professional relationship, but feelings can't be controlled by logic. And one night, everything would change between us in ways I never anticipated. One night Orville developed a mild fever. Teething had started and he was uncomfortable. I was rocking him gently, a cool compress on his forehead. When Cade came home late from the office, "What's wrong?" he demanded immediately upon entering the nursery. "Just a fever," I said, trying to sound calm despite my own worry. "Normal teething fever. I called the doctor earlier. He said it's fine, just monitor it." Cade walked straight over and touched Orville's forehead. Properly, for the first time, without hesitation. "He feels hot. I know, I'm keeping him cool. Gave him fever reducer. We just have to wait for it to come down." Cade looked at me. "Have you eaten?" I was surprised by the question. "What, dinner? Have you eaten? You've been up here since evening." No. I'll eat later. First Orville. I'll stay with him," Cade said, gently taking Orville from my arms. "You go eat something. Can't have you getting sick too." This was the first time Cade had willingly held Orville properly without any hesitation or fear. I nodded and went downstairs. But when I returned after eating, the scene melted my heart completely. Cade was sitting in the rocking chair, Orville on his chest, both of them asleep. Cade's hand rested protectively on Orville's back, and Orville's tiny hand clutched Cade's shirt. I stood there just watching. This looked like family. Incomplete, broken pieces, but trying to fit together. And in that moment I realized I wasn't just getting attached to Orville, I was developing feelings for Cade too. I quietly brought a blanket and draped it over both of them. Cade stirred slightly. "Remy," he said sleepily. "Shh. Just putting a blanket on you both. Go back to sleep." But Cade caught my wrist before I could leave. "Thank you," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "For everything. For Orville. For helping me find my way back to him." "You don't need to thank me," I said. "I do," he insisted. "You brought life back into this house. You brought him back to me. And you," he paused, "you make me feel like maybe we can be okay." My heart was racing. "Cade," I said in a warning tone. "We shouldn't." "I know," he said. "I know all the reasons why this is complicated. But I can't stop thinking about you, Remy. Your kindness, your strength, the way you love my son like he's yours." "He's not mine," I whispered, tears threatening. "But you want him to be," Cade said. "Don't you? You want to be his parent." I nodded. Honestly, because there was no point in lying. "And me?" Cade asked, his voice vulnerable. Could you ever want—" "Yes," I interrupted before he could finish. "Yes, Cade, I do. But this is complicated. You're my employer. I'm your son's nurse. We can't—" "Why not?" he challenged. "Because what if it doesn't work? What if we try and fail? Then Orville loses another person. I can't do that to him. I won't." Cade slowly stood up, carefully placing Orville in his crib without waking him. Then he came over to me. "Then we don't fail," he said simply. "We don't let ourselves fail, because Orville needs us both. And maybe we need each other too." He cupped my face gently. "I haven't felt anything since Elena died," he confessed. "Not joy, not hope, Nothing. Just numbness and guilt. But you make me feel again. You make me want to try again. And then he kissed me. Soft, tentative. Asking permission, and I gave permission. Because I was lonely too. I was broken too. And maybe we could heal each other. The weeks following that kiss felt perfect. Too perfect, actually. Kate and I were careful. Secret. The staff didn't know. The nurses didn't know. The outside world didn't know. At night when Orville slept, Cade would come to my room. We'd talk about his late wife, about my Juan, about our fears and hopes. Sometimes we'd just sit together in comfortable silence. Sometimes we'd kiss, touch, but we never went further because I wasn't ready. And Cade understood. During the days, Cade became more present in Orville's life. He'd hold him during morning routines. He'd help with bath time. He'd make silly faces to get Orville to laugh. Watching them together filled me with warmth I thought I'd never feel again. I started imagining a future. The three of us as a real family. Unconventional, yes, but real. I should have known it was too good to last. One morning I was in the kitchen feeding Orville when I heard heels clicking on the marble floor. I looked up to see a tall, elegant woman entering, perfectly styled hair, designer clothes, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So this is the famous wet nurse," she said, looking me up and down like I was something distasteful. I adjusted Orville in my arms, suddenly uncomfortable. "I'm Remy. I know who you are," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "My brother's staff." Cade entered at that moment. "Sloane, you didn't tell me you were coming." "Family doesn't need permission," she said sweetly, though sarcasm was evident. "I wanted to see what's going on. The rumors are quite interesting." My stomach dropped. "Rumors? What rumors?" Cade asked tightly. Sloane sighed dramatically and placed her designer bag on the table. "People are talking, Cade, about you hiring a male Omega to breastfeed your son. About him living here. About the unusual attachments." "There's nothing unusual about it," Cade defended. "Orville need—" "I'm not talking about Orville's needs," Sloane interrupted, then looked at me. "I'm talking about yours. People at the club, the board members, our investors, they're all whispering. Is Cade Ashford involved with his son's wet nurse? Is this some twisted arrangement?" My face burned with humiliation. "That's enough," Cade warned. "Is it true?" Sloane asked directly. "Are you sleeping with him?" Silence. Thick, damning. Cade didn't answer immediately, and that hesitation said everything. Sloane's laugh was bitter. "Oh my God. You are. Cade, what are you doing? Elena's been gone only months and you're—" "Don't," Cade growled, alpha authority dripping from his voice. "Don't bring Elena into this. She's already in this." Sloane shouted. "She's in every part of this messed up situation. You couldn't save her, so now you're playing house with some random Omega? Using him to replace her?" "I'm not replacing anyone," I finally spoke, standing up with Orville in my arms. "And I'm not some random Omega. I'm Orville's caregiver." "You're an employee who's overstepped," Sloane cut me off. "And you're setting my nephew up for abandonment. What happens when this arrangement ends? When Cade gets bored of you, or when you leave for a better opportunity? Orville will lose another mother figure. Have you thought about that?" I hadn't. "Not really. Not seriously." "That won't happen," Cade said, but even his voice lacked conviction. "Won't it?" Sloane challenged. "You can't even commit to a proper relationship. You can't even publicly acknowledge what this is. So what is it, Cade? A secret affair? Convenience? Therapy?" Orville started crying, sensing the tension. "I need to take him upstairs," I said quietly, already backing away. "Good idea," Sloane said. "'Cause we need to talk. Privately." I left the room, shushing Orville, but I could still hear their voices arguing, shouting. Upstairs in the nursery, I placed Orville in his crib and stood by the window, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Sloane was right. I hadn't thought about the future properly. What was this? A relationship? An arrangement? Temporary or permanent? And if I left, what would happen to Orville? By evening, Sloane had left, but her words remained. They repeated in my mind endlessly. That night when Kate came to my room, I'd already made my decision. "We need to talk," he began. "I'm leaving," I said first. Kate froze. "What?" And with those words, everything I'd built came crashing down. The weeks following our late-night conversation brought subtle shifts I hadn't anticipated. Kate started coming home earlier, sometimes before dinner, sometimes just as the sun was setting. He changed his entire schedule, declining evening meetings and weekend calls. At first I thought it was temporary, a phase that would pass once the novelty wore off. But it didn't pass. He began spending real time with Orville. Not just brief visits or obligatory check-ins, but actual engaged moments. I'd find them together in the nursery during early mornings, Cade speaking softly to his son about his day ahead, as if Orville could understand every word. The baby would stare up at him with wide, curious eyes, occasionally reaching out to grab his father's finger. During feeding times, Cade would sometimes sit nearby, watching quietly, not in the uncomfortable way he had before, but with genuine interest, asking questions about Orville's development, his sleep patterns, whether he seemed content. These conversations felt natural, flowing easily between us like we'd been co-parenting for years instead of weeks. One Saturday afternoon, I was giving Orville a bath in the small tub we kept in the nursery. The baby was giggling, splashing water everywhere, clearly enjoying himself. I was so focused on making sure soap didn't get in his eyes that I didn't notice Cade standing in the doorway. He laughs now, Cade observed, his voice carrying a note of wonder. I looked up, slightly startled. Started a few days ago, mostly when he's in the bath or when I make silly faces at him. Can I help? The question came hesitantly, like he was afraid I'd say no. Sure. Can you grab the towel from the warmer? Cade retrieved the soft towel and stood beside me as I lifted Orville from the water. Together we dried him off, Cade holding him carefully while I patted his tiny limbs dry. It felt domestic, comfortable, like something we'd done 100 times before. You're good at this, I said without thinking. Cade glanced at me, surprise flickering across his features. I'm just holding him. That's more than you could do a month ago. He didn't respond immediately, focusing instead on Orville's content expression. You made it possible. You showed me how. Something warm bloomed in my chest at those words. Something I immediately tried to suppress. This was my job. This was professional. I couldn't afford to let it become anything more. But denying my feelings was becoming increasingly difficult. I noticed small things about Cade that I shouldn't have been noticing. The way his hair fell across his forehead when he leaned over Orville's crib. How his entire face softened when the baby smiled at him. The deep timbre of his voice when he read bedtime stories, even though Orville usually fell asleep within minutes. And his scent, that cedarwood and smoke combination that seemed to intensify whenever he was near me. My omega instincts responded to it in ways that left me feeling vulnerable and exposed. I'd catch myself breathing deeper when he entered a room, seeking out that scent like it was essential to my existence. This wasn't supposed to happen. I was here for Orville, not to develop feelings for his father. But the heart doesn't follow logic or professional boundaries. One evening, about 3 weeks into this new normal, Orville became fussy during his bedtime feeding. He'd latch on, then pull away, crying softly, clearly uncomfortable. I checked his temperature, examined his gums, tried different positions, but nothing seemed to help. Cade appeared almost immediately, drawn by the crying. What's happening? I think he's teething. His gums are swollen. I tried to keep the frustration out of my voice, but I hated seeing Orville in discomfort. Is there anything we can do? The doctor gave me some gel to rub on his gums. It should help numb the pain temporarily. I retrieved the gel from the medicine cabinet and carefully applied it to Orville's inflamed gums. He whimpered but didn't pull away. After a few minutes, he seemed calmer, ready to try feeding again. Let me hold him while you rest your arms, Cade offered, settling into the rocking chair. I positioned Orville so he could feed while Cade held him, then knelt beside the chair to make sure everything was working properly. We were closer than we'd ever been during these moments. I could feel Cade's body heat, smell his scent more intensely. Does it hurt? Cade asked quietly, his eyes on where Orville was latched. The question caught me off guard. What? Feeding him. Does it cause you pain? I considered lying, but something about the moment demanded honesty. Sometimes. Not physical pain exactly, but emotional. Every time he latches, I remember what it felt like to feed my own son. What I lost. Cade's free hand moved to my shoulder, squeezing gently. I'm sorry. I never thought about how difficult this must be for you. It's healing too, in a strange way. Like my body still has purpose. Like I'm still a parent, even if not to my own child. You are a parent, Cade said firmly, Maybe not biologically, but in every way that matters. Orville knows you, trusts you, loves you. My throat tightened with emotion. He's easy to love, so are you. The words hung between us, heavy with meaning. I looked up and found Cade is staring at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. His gray-blue eyes held something I recognized because I felt it too: longing, desire, and something deeper that neither of us had dared to name. Cade. I started, unsure what I was going to say. I know this is complicated, he interrupted. I know all the reasons why we shouldn't. But I can't stop thinking about you, Remy. Not just as Orville's caregiver, but as someone I want in my life. Permanently. My heart hammered against my ribs. We can't. I work for you. This is a professional arrangement. Then let's change the arrangement. His voice was low, urgent. Let's make this something real. Something more. What if it doesn't work? What happens to Orville then? It will work, Cade said with conviction. Because we won't let it fail. Because we both care too much about him and each other to let it fail. Orville had fallen asleep between us, full and content. Cade carefully stood and placed him in the crib, then turned back to me. I haven't felt alive since Elena died, he confessed. I've been going through motions, surviving but not living. You changed that. You brought light back into this house. You gave me my son Matt. And somewhere along the way you gave me hope that maybe I could feel again. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady. I'm scared. So am I. But I'm more scared of not trying. Of letting you slip away because I was too afraid to take the risk. He stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone. Tell me you don't feel this too, he whispered. Tell me I'm alone in this, and I'll step back. I'll keep everything professional. But if you feel even a fraction of what I'm feeling, I couldn't tell him that, because I did feel it. Every impossible, complicated, beautiful bit of it. Instead of answering with words, I rose on my toes and pressed my lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, testing. Then Cade's arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer, and everything intensified. It felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff simultaneously, terrifying and perfect. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing heavily, Cade rested his forehead against mine. Stay, he whispered. Not just for Orville. Stay for me too. And despite every logical reason to refuse, I found myself nodding. Okay, I breathed. I'll stay. The next few weeks existed in a bubble of near-perfect contentment. Cade and I were careful, discreet. We maintained professional appearances during the day when staff was around. But at night, after Orville slept, we'd find each other. Sometimes we'd sit on the terrace, talking for hours about everything and nothing. He told me about building his company from nothing, about the pressure of maintaining his father's legacy while creating his own. I shared memories of Juan, stories I hadn't been able to tell anyone else because they hurt too much. Other times we'd simply exist in comfortable silence, his arm around my shoulders while we watched the city lights below. Physical intimacy came gradually, naturally, a touch that lingered too long, fingers intertwined, kisses that grew deeper, more urgent. We were building something real, something that felt sustainable despite its unconventional foundation. I should have known it couldn't last. The morning started normally. I was in the kitchen preparing Orville's feeding schedule when I heard the sharp click of expensive heels on marble flooring. I looked up to see a woman I'd never met striding toward me with the confidence of someone who owned the space. She was stunning, tall, impeccably dressed, with dark hair styled in a sleek bob. But it was her eyes that struck me most. They were calculating, assessing, finding me lacking in a single glance. So you're the Omega everyone's talking about, she said without preamble, her voice cultured and cold. I shifted Orville in my arms protectively. I'm Remy, and you are Sloane Ashford, Cade's sister. She circled me slowly, like a predator evaluating prey. I've heard fascinating things about my brother's household arrangements. Before I could respond, Cade entered the kitchen, stopping short when he saw his sister. Sloane, this is unexpected, is it? You've been avoiding my calls for weeks. I decided a personal visit was necessary. The tension between them was palpable. Cade moved to stand beside me, a subtle but clear message of alliance. What do you want? He asked bluntly. Sloane's perfectly painted lips curved into a smile that held no warmth. to discuss the rumors circulating about you. About this? She gestured vaguely toward me and Orville. Situation? There's no situation. Remy is Orville's caregiver. Is that all he is? Sloane's eyes were sharp, missing nothing. Because the board members are asking questions, Cade. Questions about your judgment. About whether personal grief has compromised your decision-making abilities. My stomach twisted with dread. Maybe I should take Orville upstairs. Please do, Sloane said dismissively. This is family business. But Cade's hand found mine. Fingers lacing together. Remy is family. Whatever you need to say, you can say in front of him. Sloane's eyes widened fractionally at the gesture. Oh, Cade. Tell me you're not actually involved with your employee. Tell me the rumors are exaggerated. What I do in my personal life is none of the board's concern. It becomes their concern when it affects the company's reputation. When investors start questioning your stability. When she paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. When it appears you're replacing Elena with the first Aki who showed you kindness. The words hit like physical blows. I felt Cade stiffen beside me. Don't, he warned, his voice dropping into dangerous territory. But Sloane continued, relentless. She died 6 months ago, Cade. 6 months? And you're already moved on? With someone you employ? Someone who's essentially being paid to care for your child? That's enough. Cade's alpha voice filled the room, making even me want to submit. But Sloane wasn't intimidated. I'm trying to protect you. Protect our family's legacy. Can't you see how this looks? The grieving widower, unable to parent his own child. Hiring a male Omega who conveniently lost his own baby. It's too neat, too convenient. People will think. I don't care what people think, Katie interrupted. Well, you should. Because this affects more than just you. It affects Orville's future. What happens when this arrangement ends? When Remy finds something better and leaves? Orville will lose another parental figure. Have you considered that? The question struck home because I'd been carefully not thinking about it. What was I to Orville, really? A temporary caregiver? A substitute parent? What would happen when this all fell apart? Remy isn't leaving, Cade said. But there was a thread of uncertainty in his voice. Sloane caught it too. Can you guarantee that? Can you promise that this isn't just grief and loneliness masquerading as something more? Because if you can't, then you're being irresponsible. Not just with your own heart, but with your son's. Orville began fussing, picking up on the tension. I bounced him gently, trying to soothe him while my own world crumbled around me. I need to feed him, I said quietly. Cade's grip on my hand tightened. Stay. No, she's right. This is family business. I shouldn't be here. I pulled away and left the kitchen. Orville's cries growing louder as we climbed the stairs. Behind me I could hear Sloane and Cade's argument escalating, their voices sharp with anger and frustration. In the nursery I tried to focus on Orville, on the familiar routine of feeding and comforting him. But Sloane's words echoed in my mind relentlessly. What was I doing? Playing house with a man still grieving his wife? Pretending I could be a parent to a child who wasn't mine? Building a life on a foundation that could collapse at any moment? And what about Orville? If Cade and I tried and failed, if this relationship imploded, what would happen to this innocent baby who'd already lost his mother? Could I really put him through that? By the time Orville fell asleep, I'd made my decision. Cade found me packing an hour later. He stood in my doorway looking exhausted and defeated. What are you doing? What I should have done weeks ago. Leaving before this gets worse. Remy, she's right, Cade. I continued folding clothes, not trusting myself to look at him. We rushed into this. We let grief and loneliness convince us we were building something real. But we weren't. We were just two broken people trying to fill voids that can't be filled this way. That's not true, isn't it? Can you honestly tell me what we are? Can you define this relationship? Because I can't. And if we can't even name what we're doing, how can we expect it to last? Silence. Damning, terrible silence. That's what I thought, I said, my voice breaking. You don't know either. I know I love you. The words stopped me mid-motion. I finally looked at him, saw the raw honesty in his expression. Love isn't enough, I whispered. Not when there's a child involved. Not when the stakes are this high. Orville deserves stability. Certainty. Not two people fumbling through something neither of them understands. Then help me understand it. Stay and figure it out with me. I shook my head, tears finally spilling over. I can't. Because when this falls apart, and it will, I won't survive it. I already lost Juan. I can't lose Orville too. And I can't watch you realize I was just a substitute for what you really lost. You're not a substitute. Then what am I? I demanded. Your employee? Your lover? Orville's nanny? His parent? What am I to you, Cade? He opened his mouth, closed it again. The uncertainty in his eyes answered for him. I finished packing and picked up my bag. Goodbye, Cade. Find someone appropriate for Orville. Someone who fits your world. He'll adjust to formula. Children are resilient. I walked past him, my heart shattering with every step, and this time he didn't try to stop me. 2 weeks in my old apartment felt like 2 years. Every surface reminded me of Juan, his changing table still in the corner, his mobile hanging above where his crib used to be before I donated it. Now the space mocked me with memories of both children I'd lost. My body continued producing milk despite the suppressants. The doctors increased the dosage, warned me about the physical and emotional toll, but nothing seemed to work completely. Each time I had to pump and dump the milk, I thought about Orville. Was he eating? Was he crying? Did he wonder where I'd gone? I applied for jobs mechanically, housekeeping positions, cooking roles, anything that would pay rent. But every interview felt hollow. Nothing mattered. Nothing felt right. On the 14th night, at 2 in the morning, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something made me answer. Remy. Cade's voice was wrecked, barely holding together. I need you. Ice flooded my veins. What happened? It's Orville. He's at St. Mary's Hospital. Pediatric ICU. He stopped eating after you left. We tried everything, every formula, every bottle, different nurses. Nothing worked. He just kept refusing, kept crying. Now he's dehydrated, weak. They have him on IV fluids, but he's not improving. The doctors are worried. His voice cracked completely. Please? I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for him. He needs you. I was already grabbing my jacket. I'm coming. The hospital was a 15-minute drive. I made it in 10. Cade was pacing outside the pediatric ICU, still in yesterday's clothes, looking like he hadn't slept in days. When he saw me, relief and anguish warred on his face. Room 304, he managed. I rushed past him, found the room, and stopped dead in the doorway. Orville looked so small in the hospital crib, surrounded by machines and tubes. His skin had lost its healthy color. His eyes were dull and his crying was barely audible, weak whimpers that spoke of profound exhaustion. Oh baby. I breathed, moving to his side. I'm here. I'm so sorry. The moment I touched him, his eyes opened wider. Recognition flickered across his tiny face. His hand reached weakly for my shirt. He knew me. He remembered. The nurse appeared. Are you the one Mr. Ashford called? Yes. Can I try feeding him? She consulted with the doctor who came to observe. He looked skeptical but desperate enough to try anything. If he'll latch, we'll allow it. But we need to monitor closely. I sat carefully in the chair beside the crib, mindful of all the tubes and wires. With shaking hands, I adjusted my shirt. My milk production had decreased significantly, but there was still. I brought Orville to my chest. He latched immediately, his body seeming to sigh with relief. The first few pulls were weak, uncertain, but then his natural instinct took over. He began to feed properly, his tiny hand gripping my shirt like he was afraid I'd disappear again. I sobbed openly, not caring who saw. Cade stood in the doorway, tears streaming down his face silently. The doctor monitored the machines, his expression shifting from skepticism to cautious hope. Vitals are stabilizing. This is remarkable. I fed Orville for 20 minutes before he fell asleep. Truly peaceful for what I suspected was the first time in 2 weeks. The doctor examined him, checked the monitors, and nodded with satisfaction. We'll keep him overnight for observation. But if he continues to improve, he can go home tomorrow. He needs to maintain this feeding schedule though. Consistency is crucial now. After the doctor left, Cade finally spoke. Thank you for coming. I should never have left. Fresh tears spilled down my cheeks. I convinced myself I was protecting him by leaving, but I was just protecting myself. I was afraid of being hurt again, so I hurt of you instead. I don't blame you. Sloane said terrible things. She made you doubt everything. She was right about some things though. I didn't know what we were. I still don't. Cade knelt beside my chair, taking my free hand. Then let me tell you what we are. We're a family. Broken, unconventional, and complicated. But a family. You're not my employee, Enmer. You're not just Orville's caregiver. You're the person I want to wake up next to every morning. The person I want to raise my son with. The person I want to build a life with. Kay, I'm in love with you, he continued, his voice steady despite the tears. Not because you're filling a void Elena left. Not because of grief or loneliness. But because you're you. Because you're brave and compassionate and stronger than anyone I've ever met. Because you looked at my broken family and saw something worth saving. My throat was too tight to speak. Marry me, he said simply. Not for Orville, though he needs you desperately. Not for convenience or appearances. But because I choose you. I choose us. I choose this impossible, beautiful thing we're building together. People will talk, I whispered. Let them. I don't care about the board or investors or anyone's opinion. I only care about you and Orville. About keeping our family together. I looked down at Orville, sleeping peacefully against my chest. Then at Cade kneeling beside us, his heart completely exposed. For the first time since Juan died, I felt whole. Yes, I breathed. Yes, I'll marry you. Cade surged forward, kissing me with desperate relief and fierce joy. When we pulled apart, Orville stirred slightly, making a small contented sound before settling back into sleep. Let's take him home, I said softly. We are home, Cade replied. Wherever the three of us are together, that's home. 6 months later, we stood in a courthouse with a small group of witnesses. Sloane was there. Surprisingly, she'd apologized weeks earlier, admitted her fear of losing her brother had made her cruel. Our relationship remained somewhat strained, but she was trying. The judge pronounced us married. Cade kissed me thoroughly while our witnesses cheered. In my arms, 9-month-old Orville clapped his hands, not understanding but delighting in the joy around him. We'd completed the legal adoption papers the week before. I was officially Orville's parent now. My name on his birth certificate alongside Katie's. That evening on the terrace, Orville took his first crawling steps. He made it 3 feet before collapsing with a giggle. Did you see that? Cade laughed, scooping him up. I did. He's getting so big. Orville looked between us, then said clearly, Dada. We both froze. Then he turned to me. Papa. My vision blurred with tears. Happy ones this time. Cade pulled us both into an embrace. Our family, I kissed Orville's head, then Cade's lips. Our family, I echoed. We weren't perfect. The ghosts of our past still visited sometimes. But we faced them together, 3 people bound by grief, sustained by milk, and sealed by love. This wasn't the life I'd imagined. It was something better. It was ours.